Hello, I'm Jackie Lucky, your financial planning maestro. This series of podcasts is aimed at financial planning professionals and also those who are looking to enter the financial planning profession. We will be talking during the podcast about all things Certified Financial Planner certification related, talking to other CFPs around the world, and also we will be dropping in on some new entrants who've just entered the financial planning profession, and we'll be checking up along the way on a regular basis with them to see how they're getting on. I hope you enjoy today's podcast. Hello and welcome. I'm Jackie Lucky, your financial planning maestro. And in today's podcast, we are talking to somebody who has recently become a certified financial planner in the UK. And that is Lachlan Bursle, who is Director of Create Financial Solutions. Hello, Lucky.
Hi there, Jackie.
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I've got a little bit of a cold at the moment, so apologies to anyone that has to deal with my voice, but I'm powering through the man flu.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And we are going to get straight into asking. I've got loads of questions to ask you because you had a whale of a time doing your CFP CISI Level 7 case study. But before we get into the detail of all of that and the tips that you're going to give our listeners, I want to take you right back to the start and tell me a little bit about how you first got into the financial planning profession.
Yes, so I've always had an interest in finance since I was 18. I had an aim in my head of retiring at 30. And then as I got closer to that mark, it went from retiring to deciding what I wanted to do with my time. So giving me enough financials to do that. So I'd started investing at a fairly young age. And then I was working at a large accounting firm at the time, which gave me some experience in financial services. And then I moved to the UK, because originally from Australia, and started working primarily with some large banking financial institutions here until I got very sick of working in consulting for these firms. So I went on a soul search. And as part of that, I met up with a friend's father who was an advisor with St. James's Place. And he enlightened me as to what financial planners actually do, which was very little in terms of the spreadsheets and more focusing on speaking with people about the financial knowledge. And to me, that's vital to what I did every day with my consulting, which was understanding people's problems and solving them. And to do that going forward and to talk about money at the same time was sort of combining my two passions there. So I actually joined the St. James's Place Academy the day after my 30th birthday. So mission accomplished, I would have liked to have thought at the time.
Yeah, fantastic. And so how did you come across the CFP and why did you decide to do that?
I've been studying from school onwards, so I've never really got my head out of the textbooks. And I've always wanted to sort of reach the pinnacle of whatever it is that I was liking or interested in at that point in time. And so when I was looking at, do I go down the CII route of chartership or go down the CFP route, I basically read forums, a lot of forums, went on listening to podcasts, trying to understand what is it that I was trying to achieve. And one of them was very highly technical. And the other, which was I thought was the CII route, and the other route was the CFP, which combines the technical skills, but is more about how do you communicate that to clients. And to me, I thought that was probably the most important thing in my career, because the most important thing to me is my clients, and where was I going to see the most value. And so for me, that was going down the CFP route.
Wow. Yeah, that's good to hear. And so what happened? Did you do the level 6 exam or were you already chartered before embarking on that?
No, so I'd done my level 4s through the CII, through the St. James's Place Academy. And on the back of that, I then started the CFP when it was a level 5 exam and a level 6 CFP. So I've done the the CFP route twice now.
Mm-hmm.
It just so happened the first time I did it without the support of yourself. So that was a real struggle for me. And it also coincided with moving from Glasgow to Aberdeen, having a family, buying a house. So I did one submission for my level 6 case study. And then on the feedback I got from that, it scared the living daylights out of me to see such a low mark, which after spending so long on it, I could not face doing it again. So yeah, it was the level 7 one I did the second time round with the support of yourself.
And obviously a very difficult but busy time to be doing and, undertaking the level 6 case study as well. But what was it that didn't put you off completely? Because for some people, some of our listeners out there, they had a pretty tough time with their level 6 CFP case study as well. And then it's put them off for life. So was there any particular aspect that you just thought, nah, some people say, I'm not leaving it, Jackie, I'm just like a dog with a bone and I'm just going to do it. Just, it wasn't the right time.
The first time to stop doing it was fairly simple. I just had no time in my life. So to pick it up the second time, because that dog without a bone thing, always trying to reach the top for me, for my personal achievements, but also looking to my clients for the future, meant that I had to carry on with it. And it just so coincided that I bought a business and had a baby and all sorts of things. So,
Wow.
for doing it all over again. So the timing wasn't great again. But this time I was armed with the support of yourself, knowing and listening to the podcast that you'd done previously to say it's okay to do very poorly in your first submission, even if you think you put your wholehearted best effort into it, because it might just be one problem. And once you solve that solves your plan. So listening to other people go through it, listening to some of the challenges there, that really spurred me on.
Good. Well, glad to hear it. I'm glad that you decided to keep going when the time was kind of, a little bit better than the original time. Maybe not quite the time was right, but you got there in the end, which was the main thing. And so tell us a little bit about when you got your case study the second time round and you were starting afresh. Did you have a particular approach to, did you say, right, I'm going to block out my diary and do every afternoon, or obviously taking on a new business as well? What was your overall strategy for your time management?
So I knew that if I didn't book out time, I would not have allocated any time to it. So when the options of which avenue I went down, I picked I think it was a 3 or a 4 day full day course. Because I knew that would at least get me started. And once I've started something, it's then far easier for me, my personality, to then continue with it. So that was important. And then I set aside, I think it was the next week as well, just blocked it out so clients couldn't book time in my diary. And I'd set aside 2 solid weeks to work on it. And foolishly, I thought that I would get it done in that time. But that's a whole nother story.
Well, yes, these things always take a little bit longer than you think, don't they? But
they sure do.
Yeah. So were there any particular areas? I know that you loved some particular areas. Were there and tell us a little bit about the areas that you loved and also the areas that you hated along the way.
So the areas that I loved was really just trying to uncover what the whole plan is. Because in my head, I could think, what is this client trying to achieve? Therefore, what's the best way of getting there in terms of product solutions, in terms of allocating everything? And I could sit there and in my head think about where I wanted the client to go. The real challenge for me, though, was to then think, what are the assumptions that I'm going to be using to get there? Because when I work with a client now, I'll use my cash flow modeling and we've built all our assumptions over time. And it's not something I've ever really gone back and then thought, why are we using this assumption? Where did we get the information from? Is this still suitable? Is it reasonable? Is it reasoned? And going back and really assessing things, care costs, projecting those forward. So all of those elements there, which are completely vital to someone's plan, it's something that I realized that I needed to improve upon myself. So that was the biggest challenge, I think, for me, is to really spend a lot of time getting to the assumptions and then also making it more concise. Because as you can probably tell from what I'm saying here, I love to talk and I love to write. So trying to communicate in a very concise manner was quite challenging for me.
Yes. And I think with assumptions, you've got to follow that process to set them, but then you kind of need time to mull them over and think about them. And then, like you say, how you're going to explain that essentially to a client without, bamboozling them or, writing 10 pages is, a whole new ball game entirely, isn't it?
Yes, most definitely.
Excellent. And how did you find the case study Excel spreadsheet build?
That to me was the easy part, really, because I'd done a lot of financial modeling throughout my career up to that point. So to me, that and I had a lot of experience in it. So to me, that was quite the easy part. It was I say it was easy, and that's to build the spreadsheet, but to include all of the assumptions and all the planning within it, such as breaking things down when I had a pool of money and I needed to allocate that across different products and then make withdrawals. How do I go about building formulas for that? Do I overcomplicate it or do I simplify it? So that to me was the part that took a long time, was to really come at it from how complex do I make this thing versus how simple do I make it?
Yes. And it's very easy, and it's quite easy to drop down a little rabbit hole, isn't there? This little wormhole, never to be seen again, of Excel spreadsheet. I could do it this way, or I could do it that way. But actually, you kind of need to, kind of rein yourself in, don't you? Trying not to make it too complicated, because obviously, we are building a simplified spreadsheet, and we're not rebuilding, professional, software, cash flow software that's out there.
Yeah, definitely. And to do that from the start, to build something from scratch, walking through the steps that you take everyone through, that's the simplest way of going about it, rather than trying to say, okay, how do I do this? How do I do that? Because I just got my puppy dog sort of approach to it, where I wanted to try and solve everything rather than thinking what are the fundamental things that need to be resolved with this plan, and just focusing on those.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes you just need to, we're all our own worst enemy, aren't we? Because I think also, I think the FCA highlighted this recently in their retirement income review of their cash flow outputs. And they highlighted that, this, where financial planning comes together with spreadsheets or cash flow software, it can give the illusion of seeking the correct answer, the ultimate solution. But actually, as we know from all the discussions we've had about assumptions, that we know that the one thing that we do know for certain is we're going to be wrong, aren't we?
Yeah. You're immediately wrong from the start. It's there to identify, are there any serious pitfalls and face the client if certain events were to happen.
Yeah, excellent. Yes, so we had quite a journey, but lots of fun along the way, didn't we?
Yeah, most definitely. I think having the group approach was quite good, because listening to some of the other challenges that others were facing were the exact same as myself. And then there were some elements where I felt I could add a little bit of value to other people, because I might have done it the night before and then thought, okay, here's something, here's how I went about doing that. So yeah, that was definitely a help there.
And so do you have a feel for how long it took you completely to do your first submission?
So from memory, I think you'd said it could take 250 hours. Does that sound about right for what you say? Double that for me.
Wow.
And that purely comes down to I don't know if it was Mark Twain or Churchill, who famously said the quote along the lines of, I would have written a short letter, but I didn't have the time. It's purely because I spent so long writing, rewriting, putting too much information in, that I didn't know where to stop.
Wow. And how did you decide where to stop?
Time. It came down to, it needed to be submitted in 3 days. and I wanted to have at least a day or two where I didn't read it, because I was continually working on it for a good probably 3-4 weeks. And I just needed a day or two away so I could come back and read all the spelling mistakes that I had, let alone all the fundamental issues I had. But the market certainly pulled out some of those.
Wow. And so were you successful on your first submission?
I wasn't successful. So I chose the inheritance tax planning one, I believe. So I passed quite a few of the sections, including that one, which I think is one of the more challenging sections there.
Yes, absolutely.
The part where I fell down, though, was in one particular area, and that is how to account for taxation within the plan. So I'd used an assumption based on some PwC modeling on tax drags, and I'd applied that across the client's investment portfolio, rather than breaking it down by ISAs and CIAs and bonds and all sorts of things. And so that one issue then led me to failing basically every other section that relied on income from the investments.
Yeah. And that's a really interesting point that lots of people don't realise when they're embarking on their case study, because every mistake that is made has a naturally, in this case, detrimental effect, because it's having a ripple effect right through the plan, isn't it? It's not just like an exam. I could write the right answer and the wrong answer. With this, if I did something incorrectly or the assessor felt was incorrectly done, then that is because of the consequences and knock-on effects of the advice you're giving on after that. Those bits of advice automatically are called into question. So it kind of, your feedback then looks worse than it actually is, isn't it?
Yeah, I tried to take it from standing back objectively and not take it as a personal attack. I think that's one of the first things that you mentioned to everyone that's going through the course. It's very challenging to do that, though, when you suddenly get back something that you spent so long on. And I know other people had used tax drag assumptions previously, hence why I went with it. But the assessor just said it wasn't appropriate going forward. And so for me to then say, okay, that is appropriate and I need to adjust the way I do things going forward, it took me a good couple of days to probably calm down, maybe a mojito or a beer or two. But eventually I sat there and go, yeah, that's fair comments. And along with some of the other feedback points where I could go back and review some of the areas which I had passed, but there were points of feedback. So to me, I was like, okay, it's quite important that not only do I address this one issue, which should get me through the plan, there are areas that I could improve in other areas of my planning, which I was successful in. But I know if I address those, that will make me a better financial planner going forward.
Yeah. And, it's very easy to get swept away in the heat of the moment, like you say, when you've put so much effort in to that plan and hundreds of hours into producing a plan. And then you get your feedback back and it kind of, it reads like chapter and verse and you just think, oh my goodness me. But all kudos to you, Lockie, for, stepping back and going, hang on a minute. Yes, I can remember Jackie going, just calm down, chill out. And then, looking at it as a learning experience rather than, a good slap all around the face with a wet fish.
Yeah. And the thing is, you can really see how these plans that you build relate to the real world. When you're sitting down with a client, you're starting to talk about protection and their retirement plans. You really do need to factor in the additional costs and things of implementing your advice and taking on your advice to the protection plans increase their expenditure, therefore their retirement plans need to factor in that increased expenditure. These little things that you can really take from the CFP exams into the real world.
Yes. Yeah. And so talking of into the real world, do you have, now you've had chance to reflect, and obviously you put your second submission in and you passed on your second submission. So congratulations on all of that.
Thank you. With your assistance.
Happy to help. So looking back now, How do you feel that has changed you as a financial planner? And also, how do you think it's going to help in the future with your business?
It's a change. It's changed the way I approach things, such as I've mentioned already, the assumptions. So as a business, we really looked at the assumptions that we were utilizing, and we didn't necessarily change. I can remember things like the assumptions around inflation. We didn't actually go back and change it, but we became more versed on why we are choosing those assumptions and how they are more relevant. And that's important because then that's what we communicate to clients. And so it helped in that way. It's also helping because we brought on 2 trainees fairly recently. And to go through the CFP process, it was really important for me to sort of feel like I'm getting to the top of my career. And I'm immediately seeing people that are just entering the industry and saying, this is where we should be leading you in the next sort of year and a half to 2 years, to make sure that you've come out and you're having the right conversations with clients from day one, rather than maybe developing some different behaviors along the way and then trying to adjust them, getting it right from the outset.
Yes. Yeah. It makes a big difference, doesn't it, to be able to kind of look back down your own path of development and to be able to help others much more fruitfully, because you can kind of go, okay, well, I can see where I kind of, veered off all over the shop, or, kind of went with my gut instinct when talking to clients. And like you've said yourself, your ability to write lots, for some clients, that's, they'd be absolutely happy as day to receive a plan that, was huge. But lots of other clients are just kind of, well, just lucky, give me the edited highlights. And so being able to have those kind of tools in your kit bag can help you train others in the future, can't it?
It can, and it helps you operate on the fly more as well. So you can have live cash flow modeling meetings with clients, and you can deal with questions that come up. And again, I raised the area of assumptions because that was a really big important thing for me. When clients can say, oh, why have you factored that in? You can explain these immediately in front of the client and make adjustments. If they have a slightly differing of opinion and you want to show what's the impact of that, you can explain why you've used what you have, but then maybe make a change to more align to how they feel the world's going to be, just to show them what the impact could be should one event take place or the other.
Yeah, really important to be able to do that and have the confidence, in the reason why you've done what you've done, but also have the confidence to be flexible if that's what the client wants.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. So looking back, and we are nearly at the end of our interview, looking back now, what advice would you give to people who are starting on their journey to become a certified financial planner? See if you can give us 3 tips, if that's possible, for people who are perhaps, maybe sitting on the fence, but definitely thinking, maybe it's on my to-do list for 2025.
So 3 tips. The first, for me and for anyone that is a little bit time poor in their life, is to block out your diary. And that is to set aside a solid, I would say, 2 weeks at least for people. If you're like me, it'll be more than that. As well as blocking out time to come back and reread over it. So having time away from your plan to come back to it. Before embarking on it, which I probably should have done first, before embarking on it, is just do it. If you think that you want to get to the next stage, if you want to have better conversations with clients, if you want to feel more professional and feel as though you're a financial planner rather than a financial advisor, then the CFP is the right thing for you. And just crack on and do it. And working with someone such as yourself to give you that little bit of support, a little bit of encouragement, but also gives you a framework from where to start from, because that's often the hardest thing for a lot of people is getting started. That's really important there. The third and final thing is don't be disheartened if you're not successful in the first submission. There could be one thing, as it was in my case, that has led you astray. Could be a few things to work on, but see it as personal development. So there's a lot you can learn from the markers. And whilst they are short and brutal with their feedback and very concise, so unlike exactly everything I submitted to them, it is all there to help you with your development at the end of the day, and so that we can become better as a profession.
Excellent tips there, Lockie. Thank you so much for being a guest on our podcast today, and I wish you all the best for the future.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Jackie.
It's really interesting, isn't it, to listen to different people who have different experiences of gaining their certified financial planner certification, or maybe developing the financial planning profession at large. If you know anybody who you think might be interested in listening to any of these podcasts, then please do pass on our details. That's it for me. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode. See you again soon. Bye for now.